Hey, what's up, YouTube? Well, today's the day. We're only a few days away from the NFL draft. And finally, I have my NFL mock draft for the 2018 NFL draft ready to go. So this video, what I'm going to be doing for this is for my mock draft, is I'm going to divide this into three different sections. I'm only doing the first round for my mock draft. And what I'll be doing for each section is the first section is picks 1 through 10. The second section will be picks 11 through 20. And the third section will be picks 21 through 32. And for my mock draft, everything is on a table, including trades, just everything. It was a lot of fun for me to put this together. And without further ado, let's get right into this thing. So number one, the Cleveland Browns are on the clock. And when I look at the needs for the Cleveland Browns, it has to be quarterback. They have to go quarterback with their first overall pick. But if they don't go quarterback, that would be a huge mistake, in my opinion. They passed on Carson Wentz, Deshaun Watson, Mitchell Trubisky, and it's just time that they finally just go for it and pick their guy. So without a further ado, I have the Cleveland Browns from the first overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, selecting Sam Darnold, quarterback out of USC. Now, while I personally prefer Josh Allen out of Wyoming, I feel the Browns are leaning more towards Darnold going into the draft. Darnold is the safer of these prospects overall in terms of the quarterbacks between Josh Allen and Sam Darnold, who I think best fit the mold of what Cleveland is looking for in a quarterback. Sam Darnold has the size, the arm strength, the playmaking ability, and most importantly, the leadership ability to be the Browns franchise quarterback for a very, very long time. I think he'll have the advantage of sitting for his first year to kind of clean up some of his mechanical issues and maybe some of his turnover-prone tendencies while Tyrod Taylor gets the start. But I think he should be ready if necessary. If we say that Tyrod Taylor gets injured or maybe he underperforms or Cleveland's losing, Sam Darnold's a guy that can step in right away and perform at the next level. So moving on to number two, I have a trade. Yep, already it's getting to that time of the draft, baby. I have a trade where the Bills are going to get the second overall pick. In exchange, the Giants are going to get the Bills' 12th overall pick, 22nd overall pick in the first round, their second round pick, and a 2019 first round pick. The Giants miss out on getting the quarterback that they like in Sam Darnold, but they need to add a flush of young talent to an aging roster in need of a rebuild. They could stay at the pick and pick Saquon Barkley or Bradley Chubb, but I feel that Dave Gettleman, the GM for the Giants, with his history, that he will look to trade down and get a running back later in the draft. So that is the trade situation I have here. For the Buffalo Bills, the only reason that they would make this trade is to draft a quarterback. And by the Jimmy Johnson trade value chart, which is what I was going by for all my trades, they overpaid a little bit. However, there is no price too high for a quarterback if you find your guy, which is what the Bills are going to do with this trade. So without a further ado, I have the Buffalo Bills selecting Josh Allen, quarterback out of Wyoming. With this pick, the Buffalo Bills get the best quarterback in this draft, in my opinion. In order to play in Buffalo, I believe a quarterback needs size, big hands, and a cannon of an absolute arm to throw in the elements. Allen has all these traits in spades, and he proved that he could throw in the snow in college and in the elements overall. With A.J. McCarron as their starting quarterback for the recent upcoming season, the Bills don't necessarily have to rush Allen into the starting role right away. However, Allen will most likely play sooner rather than later for the Bills, as McCarron, he's a little bit on shaky ground, I feel like, as a starting quarterback. Also, an advantage to making this trade for the Bills is that they get to leapfrog the Jets, who are looking for a quarterback as well, to get the quarterback that they want. So that's one of the reasons why I think the Bills will make this trade. So, speaking of the Jets, moving on to number three, the New York Jets are on the clock. When I look at the Jets' needs, it's pretty simple. They traded up with the Colts for one reason and one reason only, and that's to draft their franchise quarterback. Christian Hackenberg was a waste of a draft pick in the second round a few years ago. Josh McCown is an old placeholder, and Teddy Bridgewater is not guaranteed to be a long-term answer, only on a one-year deal. Picking a quarterback here allows the Jets to be secure both short-term and long-term at the position. So, without further ado, the New York Jets, with the third overall pick in the NFL draft, will select Baker Mayfield, quarterback out of Oklahoma. While I have Josh Rosen as a better prospect overall than Baker Mayfield, however, I think Baker Mayfield fits the Jets like a glove. The Jets have been searching for their next Joe Namath for such a long time, and Mayfield has the same type of swagger that Namath brought in the late 60s and early 70s as their franchise quarterback. It will be interesting to see how the positional battle will play itself out in 2018 with 3 to 4 guys competing for the job, but Mayfield will be the guy for the Jets long-term going forward for this franchise. So moving on to number 4, the Cleveland Browns. They're back on the clock, and this is where things get interesting for me. When I look at the Browns' needs, they could go with a variety of options here. They could further boost their backfield with Saquon Barkley, the best player in the draft, in my opinion. This is who most experts have the Browns picking if Saquon Barkley is available here. They could also nab another pass rusher opposite Myles Garrett and a guy like Bradley Chubb. They could further fix a woeful secondary with a player such as a Minkah Fitzpatrick or Denzel Ward or maybe a Derwin James potentially. There's also the option for the Cleveland Browns to trade down. But in this situation, I think the Browns are going to stay. And with the 4th overall pick in the NFL draft, I have the Browns picking Bradley Chubb, defensive end out of North Carolina State. The Browns are going to resist the urge to trade back further and add the best defensive player in this entire draft in Bradley Chubb. While Barkley is tempting as the best player in this draft overall, the pass rushing position is the most important position in football besides your quarterback. You need to, in my philosophy of building a team, you need to first get a quarterback, protect your quarterback, and then get guys on the defensive side of the ball that can get to the quarterback. And that's what the Browns are going to do here. With Chubb, the Browns have one of the best, if not the best, young edge rushing duos in the entire NFL with Myles Garrett on one side and Bradley Chubb on the other. And these guys will wreak havoc on quarterback for an extremely long time. So a great draft so far for the Cleveland Browns. Moving on to number 5, the Denver Broncos are on the clock. For needs for the Denver Broncos, there's a lot of them. Even though they signed Case Keenum, there still isn't a long-term option at quarterback for the Broncos overall with Case Keenum on a 2-year contract. The Broncos also need a boost in the running game as their O-line is pretty weak and they just cut C.J. Anderson, their head running back, over the past few seasons. GM John Elway could also see the need to add some young talent to a defense that slipped a little bit last season, especially late in the season when their playoff hopes kind of dwindled down and became non-existent. So, with the 5th overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, I have the Denver Broncos selecting Saquon Barkley, running back out of Penn State. John Elway decides against potentially reaching for a quarterback with Darnold and Allen and Mayfield all off the board. The Broncos are getting the best player in the draft with this pick. Saquon Barkley will take immediate pressure off of Case Keenum in the running game and add an explosive element to the Broncos running game that they haven't had in a very long time. Barkley, let's just say it here. He's a generational talent, and this is a guy that can put the Broncos back into playoff contention right away next season by being an absolutely explosive force in their running game. So, moving on to number 6, the Indianapolis Colts are on the clock. They traded back for number 3 with the Jets, and after trading down the Colts, they're still able to have the opportunity to get an elite prospect while also acquiring multiple picks in the 2nd round to fill other needs later in the draft. The Colts have a bevy of options here. I think priority number 1 should be to help protect Andrew Luck, who is recovering from an injury overall in terms of my philosophical need to build around the quarterback. However, there are needs all over the place for the Colts, especially on defense, that the Colts just need to address. So without anything else being said, with the number 6 pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, I have the Indianapolis Colts selecting Tremaine Edmonds, inside linebacker out of Virginia Tech. The Colts could also go with Quentin Nelson here at this spot, which I think either one of those picks would be the right choice in my opinion. However, I think it will be too hard for the Colts to pass up on a talent such as Tremaine Edmonds, and that with the additional picks they have in the 2nd round, they can get a guard later, especially in this draft class where the interior offensive line is a pretty strong position overall. Edmonds could play any linebacker spot for the 4-3 defense that the Colts are transitioning to, and he has the potential to be an absolute all-pro wherever the Colts decide to play him at. It might not be right away. He's still a little bit raw in terms of his instincts and his technique in some spots. But this guy's got off the walls just potential. And he would be just an instant playmaker for his defense right off the bat that desperately needs playmakers there. So moving on to number 7, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are now on the clock. When I look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers needs, they have lots of needs to fill if they're going to make another playoff run or get back to the playoffs. They haven't been there in a very long time. Their first need, they need to protect Jameis Winston, who struggled with injuries last year with his shoulder. So getting offensive linemen would definitely help them in that aspect. There are also needs all over the secondary, as they need to get an eventual replacement, first of all, for Brent Grimes, their cornerback, and fix the safety spot as a whole, which has been just a mess for them over the past few seasons. They could also go pass rusher here, but I think with the addition of Jason Pierre-Paul and with Bradley Chubb off the board, I think there would be a bit of a reach here if they decided to go pass rusher with this pick. So with the 7th overall pick and the 2018 NFL Draft, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Minkah Fitzpatrick, safety out of Alabama. Fitzpatrick fills a glaring hole at the safety position for the Buccaneers. His versatility will be an asset for the Bucs, as he can play not only the free safety role at the highest safety position going sideline to sideline, he can also be a box safety for this defense, and he can also be a shutdown slot corner with Brent Grimes on one side on the outside and Vernon Hargreaves on the other side on the outside for certain nickel and dime packages. So Minkah Fitzpatrick, he just adds a lot of value for this defense in need of some playmakers in the secondary overall. Moving on to number 8, my Chicago Bears are on the clock. What are the needs for the Bears? Well, the Bears, they filled their most glaring need in free agency by signing some pass catchers to help out Mitchell Trubisky. Another way they can help out their quarterback in this draft would be going with an offensive lineman here, especially with the release of Josh Sitton. There's a glaring hole now at the left guard position for the Bears. And while their defense is a top 10 unit, ascending overall, and very good at multiple positions, there is a glaring need for this defense to get another young pass rusher to complement Leonard Floyd, who has yet to break out and has struggled with minor injuries here and there over the course of his career. So, without further ado, with the number 8 pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, I have the Chicago Bears selecting Quentin Nelson, offensive guard out of Notre Dame. To me, this seems like the perfect pick for the Bears, as the Bears have a need at the offensive guard spot, and Nelson's former college head offensive line coach, Harry Highstad, now works for the Bears as their offensive line coach. So it kind of fits in terms of the connections there. The reason I pass on an edge rusher, even though I feel it's kind of the bigger need, is because that I feel that would be a little bit of a reach at this spot in the draft, and that Quentin Nelson, he was just a top player on my board overall, and he fills a need. So basically with this pick, Nelson joins a very talented interior offensive line. When you look at Cody Whitehair at center, Kyle Long at the other guard spot on the right side of the offensive line, there's a lot of potential here now to have a very dominant trio of interior offensive linemen for the Bears that they can use to protect their franchise quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky, as well as opening up running games for Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen, and that very explosive running game the Bears already have in place already. So as a Bears fan, I would be extremely ecstatic with this pick, and that's where I think it's going to happen when it comes to draft day. And at number 5, I have another trade where the Cardinals are going to move up to the 9th pick in the NFL draft. In exchange, the 49ers are going to get the 15th pick from the Cardinals 3rd-round pick in this draft, and a 2019 first-round pick along with those 2 picks. The 49ers, the way I kind of weird wording there, but the reason I think the 49ers are going to make this trade is they still have many needs to fill all over the team, and they would love the chance to move back and add additional draft picks to fill those needs. Meanwhile, for the Cardinals, they need a quarterback desperately. And while this is an overpay a little bit, like I said before with the Bills, the price is never too high if they can find their guy at the quarterback position. And they don't really have that guy on the roster right now. Sam Bradford, he's on a 1-year deal. And he's clearly not the answer and will most likely be hurt within the first couple of games. If we're being honest here, that's what Sam Bradford does. He gets a lot of money, and then he gets hurt. That's what he does. And do the Cardinals really want to put their 2018 season in the hands of Mike Glennon for an extended period of time? The answer is no. Also, by trading up now with the 49ers to the number 9 slot, the Cardinals can leapfrog Miami, who is a threat at this point to snag a quarterback if a quarterback does fall to them. So I feel like the Cardinals would need to make this jump here, and the 49ers are more than willing to trade back and get some additional picks. So with the 9th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, I had the Arizona Cardinals selecting Josh Rosen, quarterback out of UCLA. New head coach Steve Wilkes is a defensive-minded head coach that seems to like the old-school pocket passer approach to quarterback. You can kind of see that with Sam Bradford and Mike Glennon already as their quarterbacks on the roster. Rosen fits this mold to a T. I think Rosen will compete with Bradford right away for the job, but there's still a little bit of a pressure. There's still very little pressure for him to start right away, as Bradford has $15 million guaranteed to start, and it would be tough for the Cardinals to kind of waste $15 million to put Bradford in a backup role, at least initially in the season. So Rosen will likely see playing time due to the fact that Glennon's just awful all the way around and will not compete with Rosen at all for a spot in the depth chart. And Bradford's just likely to get injured at some point. So I think Rosen, he'll be ready to go right away, and he should get playing time pretty quickly with the Arizona Cardinals, despite the fact that it will be a bit of a competition with Sam Bradford. So number 10, the last pick in the top 10 of the 2018 NFL Draft, the Oakland Raiders are on the clock. When I look at the needs for the Oakland Raiders, this is John Gruden's first draft as the head coach of the Oakland Raiders in this era of the John Gruden coaching tree. There's a lot of needs on the defensive side of the ball primarily. Other than Khalil Mack and Carlos Joseph as a safety, everyone on this defense I think can be replaceable or seen that way. So I think the Raiders could go anywhere from a cornerback to an inside linebacker to a defensive lineman, or maybe another pass rusher to complement Khalil Mack on the opposite side. So who I have the Oakland Raiders picking with the 10th overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft is Roquan Smith, inside linebacker out of Georgia. Smith brings a much-needed speed and athleticism to the middle of the Raiders' defense. Smith will also bring a much-needed leadership presence for this linebacking group as a whole, which has been a very weak spot. The middle section of the Raiders' defense has been a weakness for them over the past few seasons that has kept them from really emerging as a real contender in the AFC. So now with this pick, the Raiders now have 3 players that they can build around with their defense, with Khalil Mack about to get a giant extension. When I look at Roquan Smith at linebacker, and then Carlos Joseph as a safety, they have 3 guys that they can build off of at every single level of the defense. And I think it just makes too much sense, I think, for this pick. So that is the top 10 of the draft.